When Napoleon lay at Bologna for a year with his flat-bottomed boats and his grand army, he was told by someone, "There are bitter weeds in England." There are certainly a great many more of them since the British Expeditionary Force returned. So I have, myself, full confidence that if all do their duty, if nothing is neglected, and if the best arrangements are made as they are being made, we shall prove ourselves once more able to defend our island home, to ride out the storm of war, and to outlive the menace of tyranny, if necessary, for years, if necessary, alone. At any rate, that is what we are going to try to do. That is the resolve of His Majesty's government, every man of them. That is the will of Parliament and the nation. The British Empire and the French Republic, linked together in their cause and in their need, will defend to the death their native soil, aiding each other like good comrades to the utmost of their strength. Even though large tracts of Europe and many old and famous states have fallen, or may fall, into the grip of the Gestapo and all the odious apparatus of Nazi rule, we shall not flag or fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. And even if, which I do not for a moment believe, this island, or a large part of it, were subjugated and starving, then our empire beyond is armed and guarded by the British fleet, would carry on the struggle until, in God's good time, the new world with all its power and might steps forth to the rescue and the liberation of the old. Greetings, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Reading Epic Threads. I'm your host, Patrick Gunnels, joining you from Houston, Texas, this July 23rd, 2024 at 12 noon Central Daylight Time. Great show for you today. One piece, possibly two, depending on how long it takes me to get through it. The first one is going to be from Billie, and it's going to be entitled, "We Are Being Punked." But first, right after I get done recording this video, I am going to be producing, I think today we estimate we will be producing 157 bottles of Rainfall. Guys, you pump it into your hand and it's got this golden shimmer to it. It's the most amazing lotion the world has ever known, consisting of some of the best food-grade plant oils the whole world has ever seen. And I can just feel it soaking right in. It soaks right into your skin. And then it's just a matter of seconds. It's not even a minute before, bam, all of a sudden, you're just moisturized You don't have any slipperiness on you. It just absorbs right into your skin. The scent is absolutely heavenly. It comes from a benzoin essential oil, kind of like vanilla, but also kind of woodsy in its own way. And it has calming effects. Check it out at epicminerals.net. Go to the Epic Moisture section of the website and get your Epic Moisture Rainfall. Guys, you can also check out rainfall.life. And we're just super excited that you guys love it so much. Check out the reviews. We hardly have any units out in the field right now, and yet the 5-star reviews are already coming in. So check it out, guys. And now, without further ado, from Dawn Billie, we are being punked. You've been punked. Punked was a hidden camera practical joke reality show that aired on MTV in the early 2000s. Created by Ashton Kutcher, it was similar to Candid Camera and TV's Bloopers and Practical Jokes, and featured pranks on celebrities. The Urban Dictionary definition of "am I being punked" is an expression of surprise and disbelief that is uttered when one is in a situation that is perceived to be ridiculous or beyond belief. Have you asked, are we being punked, at any time during the last 4 or longer years? If you are reading this, it's safe to assume you have honed your critical thinking skills. You can probably see through the fog of war that we have been subjected to over the last several years. There are days when I am completely dumbfounded that we have yet to rise up and yell, "Are you serious? You want us to believe this?" There is no malicious intent in this paper, nor is there any desire to belittle others who don't see things the same way as we do. We all have family members for whom we care and whom we respect, who still believe everything the television tells them. It's hurtful knowing that they will listen to the proven liars on television before they listen to us. It's astonishing. It's disappointing. It's unclear if we are at the part where we are still slowly being shaken awake, or if the good guys are so deeply enjoying laughing at us that they continue throwing out stupidity to see how far they can take it. All of us have varying degrees of awakening. There are still so many who are still sleeping soundly, far from questioning anything outside of the mainstream narrative. It can be fun to tiptoe around current happenings with someone who is slowly beginning to wake up. They parrot a comment that they heard on television. We ask if they have considered an alternate view, and you see the rusty gears start up on with these people. The left side of their brain as they start to question their own perception of reality. We need to be gentle with these people. Read the room, gauge your audience. Throwing a different version of truth at them can shut them down instantly if you're not careful. Where the beginning starts is anyone's guess. For some people, the beginning may be Vietnam or 9/11. It's probably safe to say that just about everything we have been told is a lie, past and present. Knowing exactly when it became obvious that we are being punked is difficult to pinpoint. As a starting point, this paper will begin with COVID. Who knows what COVID is or what it's not, if it's really a virus, if it was man-made or leaked from a lab, or if it was a bioweapon meant to kill us all. One thing we can all agree on is that it was used to incite fear and compliance throughout the world. In many cases, it worked. Luckily, a good portion of our fellow Americans remembered that we are guided by our Constitution and fought back against the tyranny that they were attempting to lord over us. We tend to gloss over, simplify, and forget some of the things we experienced during that time. We all have differing stories of how we found out, how we felt, what we were thinking, When the first COVID patient was reported, most of us were scared, which led us to being scared into submission. That was the intent. Every news channel aired terrifyingly bright red maps of COVID cases throughout the country, with a counter showing the growing number of cases. According to psychology.org, red is a primary color. It represents passion, warmth, and sexuality, but it is also known as a color that stands for danger, violence, and aggression. They know exactly what they're doing when they subject us to visions like this. But they took it too far. News broadcasts aired videos of Chinese citizens falling over dead on the sidewalk. They told us that China was locking citizens in their homes. All the while, the television screen displayed the continual ticking up of the number of COVID deaths. During this time, they weren't referred to as COVID-related deaths or someone dying with COVID. We were to believe that people were dropping dead on the streets from COVID, like something out of Contagion. It was shocking to hear someone repeat that thousands of people had died from COVID, according to the news. Yet they were completely dumbstruck if you interrupted to ask, do you personally know anyone who has died from COVID? The stammering and stuttering was enough to cause you to lose faith in humanity. Where were the American citizens dropping dead on our streets? We were expected to believe that we were safe, sitting at a table drinking a Coke, but as soon as we stood up to leave without a mask on our face, we were likely to die. It was a scary, difficult time. Our critical thinking skills were infected by COVID. The fake inauguration day of January 20th, 2021 was a long, drawn-out sitcom of silliness. This was the inauguration that should have included President Trump, but did not. The images from that day are etched in our memory, and looking back on it should make us feel slightly foolish that we fell for such an obvious sleight of hand. The social distancing, lack of an audience, outdoor swearing in, fencing around the Capitol, armed National Guardmen walking the streets, we took it in stride and chalked it up to the very deadly pandemic coupled with the very deadly insurrection of January 6th. Never mind the fact that 2 weeks prior, hundreds of thousands of people were on the National Mall for the J6 rally, yet news broadcasts weren't showing images of COVID-infected patriots dropping dead of COVID on that day or the days following. There are more instances of us being punked than can even be recalled, but some do stand out. We have been led to believe that the days of strong, healthy, testosterone-pumping Marines protecting our country are over. Be all you can be has become be anything you want to be. We are being told that our military is comprised of estrogen-heavy, woke officers in drag. Do you believe that? Admiral Rachel Levine is the nation's first transgender 4-star general, serving as the 17th Assistant Secretary for the Department of Health and Human Services, nominated by Joe Biden. He, she, they is pictured everywhere in uniform with high heels and makeup. In addition to Dr. Levine, the new Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Department of Energy, Sam Brinton, is a non-binary drag queen, which, according to Yahoo News, is, quote, an asset to queer activists. Below is a photo of Admiral Rachel Levine and Sam Brinton together. Just feast your eyes, guys. Are we being punked? While these people, positions, and circumstances may be real, in the past, they would have been brushed under the rug, not shoved in our face to accentuate the absurdity of it all. The classified documents case against President Trump was recently dropped Following the Supreme Court's presidential immunity ruling, while the validity of this case may have been in question, there are other court cases concerning Trump that are either an education of our corrupt judicial system or a test of how gullible we are. Take, for instance, Fani Willis. The Georgia election subversion case began as a case against Trump for attempting to subvert Georgia's 2020 presidential election results. However, when the Real Housewives of the Fulton County Court began, it was discovered that Ms. Willis was having an affair with the prosecutor. What happened and followed was an absurd display of deceit, corruption, and flat-out nonsense. Ms. Willis's father took the stand to testify on her behalf, which was odd, but his testimony seemed scripted from a reality TV show. According to PBS.org, John Clifford Floyd III, Fani Willis's father, testified that, quote, he always told his daughter to have 6 months of cash on hand. That part makes sense. Good fatherly advice. But he went on to say, quote, it's a black thing. Most black folks, they hide cash. They keep cash. Fani herself took the stand and spoke to the judge like a petulant child in need of serious discipline for her blatant disrespect. Other than an episode of Judge Judy, this was unlike any other televised trial I have ever seen. It was impossible to miss the ridiculousness of the whole situation. We are expected to believe that a woman with an advanced degree, a black woman, who has risen to the level of district attorney for the state of Georgia, conducted herself this way. She was humiliated, embarrassed, exposed to be a liar, a cheater, and an overall nasty woman. Not to mention unprofessional and suffering from a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome. Yet we looked away and said, yep, that was obviously real. In a June 2024 article, CNN reported that the election subversion conspiracy case will be indefinitely paused by the Georgia Appeals Court. The odds of this case continuing at all are probably very slim. Green Lives Matter, at UltraFrog17 on Twitter, posted a video compilation on X of clips from Senator Adam Schiff, Congressman Adam Schiff, CNN's Jake Tapper, Senator Chuck Schumer, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, and CNN's John Berman discussing the very violent insurrection of January 6th. In each instance, rather than saying that Donald Trump incited the insurrection, they say Donald Trump incited the erection. It's hilarious in a juvenile way, but difficult to believe that every one of these instances was a mistake. Was their script or teleprompter written this way intentionally? This, too, is either a distraction, an awakening moment, or an opportunity to embarrass and shame these people. Well before the June debate between President Trump and Joe Biden, it was clear that Joe Biden was not in control. At any time in your life, have you seen a president of the United States fall up the stairs? Not once, not twice, but over and over. How many times have you seen a president wander off stage unsure of where he was going? Does it alarm you? We have been subjected to numerous videos of Biden wandering aimlessly, looking lost, squatting oddly on stage, babbling, conducting himself inappropriately with foreign leaders. If this is reality, then our military has allowed us to become vulnerable to attack from our enemies. We are clearly a nation in decline without a commander-in-chief, unless, of course, we're being punked. We've all seen or heard the stories of Biden and his earlobes. Whether you think he is the same person he has always been, or you believe he is an actor in a mask, you have to admit that he looks much different from how he looked in the past. People argue that he's aging. He's had facelifts, on and on. However, President Trump doesn't look much different than he did 10 or 15 years ago. There are many cases where people appear much different than they did pre-2020. Some people seemed to change their appearance and then change back again. Kamala Harris is a perfect example. She looked like Kamala. Then supposedly had a facelift, which drastically changed her appearance, and now she looks like Kamala again, although there are many. The following are just a few examples. All right, let's look at these together, guys. So we're going to blow this up and look at these before and afters. All right, so here we got de Blasio on the left there, and then de Blasio. Okay, de Blasio, de Blasio, de Blasio, de Blasio. All right, next. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman. Fetterman 1, Fetterman 2. Kamala 1, Kamala 2. Look at that. Kamala 1, Kamala 2. Look at what happened to her face here, guys. That's freaking demonic looking. You remember this, guys? You remember this shit? Look at this. And now she's back. Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs. Rosie O'Donnell? Maybe, I don't know. That one's a tougher call for me. All right, continuing. Chief of Disguise. Jonna Mendez was chief of disguise at the CIA, and along with her husband, Antonio Mendez, wrote several books on their life in the CIA, including Argo, How the CIA and Hollywood Pulled Off the Most Audacious Rescue in History, and Spy Dust. Two masters of disguise reveal the tools and operations that helped win the Cold War. In her book, In True Face, A Woman's Life in the CIA Unmasked, Mrs. Mendez, quote, shares numerous juicy details, from how she briefed President George H.W. Bush on the agency's new mask technology while wearing one of the advanced pieces without him knowing. George H.W. Bush was president from 1989 to 1993. If the CIA had this technology back then, imagine what they have developed in the last 20 years. There are links to several interviews with Mrs. Mendez on her website. In her interview, How the CIA Used Cutting-Edge Mask Technology to Blend In with Russian babushkas on Secret Mission, Mrs. Mendez says, quote, one day I ventured out to test an early prototype of a new mask. This one turned me into a black female. To soften the color transition immediately around my eyes, I wore medium tinted glasses, but otherwise my disguise went on easily. I also wore a pair of gloves that went up to my elbows, matching the pigment of the mask. Jonna Mendez has fabricated disguises around the world in the most hostile cities in the world. She is able to take a well-known figure and quickly disguise them to the level that they basically disappear, and their colleagues would not be able to recognize them. It's safe to assume that masks can also be created to alter someone's appearance so that they look like someone else entirely. How can we not believe that corrupt members of our government who look slightly different on television or social media may be actors using this technology? From Sun Tzu to the present, warfare has been conducted by the use of deception and illusion. The fourth PSYOP group. Deception is not a new idea in warfare. According to the fourth PSYOP group's official U.S. Army website, Who We Are, PSYOP forces are masters of influence, the core of information warfare. We conduct influence activities to target psychological vulnerabilities and create or intensify fissures, confusion, and doubt in adversary organizations. We use all available means of dissemination, from sensitive and high-tech to low-tech to no-tech, and methods from overt to clandestine to deception. End quote. In Ghost Army, the combat con artists of World War II, the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, known as the Ghost Army, was the first mobile multimedia tactical deception unit in U.S. Army history, this top secret unit used visual, sonic, and radio deception to fool German forces during World War II. The unit waged war with inflatable tanks and vehicles, fake radio traffic, sound effects, and other forms of illusion to trick the enemy. In Operation Fortitude, the military used deception during the build-up to the 1944 Normandy landings. Dummy tanks were used to confuse German intelligence by making it appear that the Allies had more tanks than they did, as well as to hide the location of the real tanks, to make it seem that the invasion would occur somewhere other than Normandy. Following the war, the unit's soldiers were sworn to secrecy, records were classified, and equipment packed away. Except for a newspaper article right after the war, no one spoke publicly about the deceivers until a 1985 Smithsonian article. Though knowledge of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops was then public, it was still officially classified until the mid-1990s. The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012. It is far from inconceivable that our government would mislead or propagandize us. The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012 plainly tells us that it will, and it does. The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act amends the original Act of 1948, which authorized the Secretary of State and the Broadcasting Board of Governors to prepare and disseminate information intended for foreign audiences about the United States, including its people, history, and the federal government's policies, tough press, publications, radio, motion pictures, the internet, social media, information centers, and instructors. The original Smith-Mundt Act was signed into law in 1948. The principal purpose of the legislation was to engage in a global struggle for minds and wills. The first and most well-known restriction was a prohibition on domestic dissemination of materials intended for foreign audiences by the State Department. In other words, for decades, it was considered an anti-propaganda law which prevented the U.S. government from delivering programming to American audiences. According to Foreign Policy, the result was an unleashing of thousands of hours per week of government-funded radio and TV programs to U.S. citizens. The reform was initially criticized as a green light for U.S. domestic propaganda efforts. In simpler terms, in 1948, the government made it lawful to disseminate propaganda to other countries, but not within the United States. However, after the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012 went into effect on July 2nd, 2013, during Barack Obama's presidency, propaganda within the United States was permitted. A 2013 Washington Post article states, quote, "In the past, psychological operations usually meant dropping leaflets or broadcasting propaganda on the battlefield. Today, the military is more focused on manipulating news and commentary on the internet, especially social media, by posting material and images without necessarily claiming ownership." If you have ever thought that everything is a lie, you're probably right. We have been subjected to years of disinformation. It has certainly been frustrating and tiresome, but unfortunately, we have no control over the situation. We have to find comfort in the belief that what we have experienced is for our own good, and that someday this will all make sense to us. We are living through a historic period, and many of those around us have been protected from whatever clandestine operations have been undertaken. At the end of the day, we should be grateful that confusion is, hopefully, the worst thing many of us have experienced during this war. And that is the latest from Dawn Billie. Hey guys, share this out. I think this is a magnificent encapsulation of why people like Chris, people like Dawn, people like I feel the way that we do about the so-called current events that we're being asked to consume as the truth. We have a perfect storm of legislation and, I guess, empire decline and technological growth and relaxation of regulation on what the US government can do to its own people. And that perfect storm has resulted in the information landscape that we see today. Donald Trump is fighting on that battlefield. He's fighting against people whose first weapon is incredibly sophisticated deception. You can't fight them unless you use those weapons as well. Please bear that in mind when making moral judgments about what we're seeing proceed in this information war.
Well, you're glowing, first of all, and it's great, and I love it.
It's Rainfall by epicminerals.net. If you want this glow, get this product. Rainfall by epicminerals.net.
Zeolite while you're at it.
Absolutely.
Promo code Badlands.
Like using Zeolite, it's great. It's fantastic.
Skin will glow like Patrick's Liberace shirt.
Every time you use promo code Badlands with either one of these products, money is directly deposited in a Badlands account going directly to Badlands creators.
It was absolute and complete justice. It was victory. It was victory.
I'm going to keep that to our only feature for today's show. Don't forget to get your Rainfall, guys. Best lotion the world has ever known. Use promo code Shapiro to pry 10% from my grasping hands. Share this video with your friends. And the reason I say that is because I think Dawn really was able to boil it down into, like, I don't know how long that piece was, maybe 500 words, 600 words. I'm not sure, maybe 1,000 words. I don't remember. But it was well encapsulated what creates a perfect storm of deception. And so it gives us really a lot of leeway to question every single thing we see. So if you could share this with your friends, I'm going to go ahead and upload this to Substack too as an audio recording. This is the kind of thing that people need to see. She doesn't speculate much. She just lays out a whole bunch of absolutely incontrovertible facts. How the F did we get into this situation? Why do we have mask malfunctions in front of us? We have to take these things into account. So everybody, please share this video, hit the thumbs up on Rumble, share it on X, and let us pray. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow.